We live in a democratic society. Everyone deserves a freedom of speech, so there's always going to be a place for a fanzine. Always, no matter it's a football fanzine, a music fanzine, a boxing fanzine. If you can say what you want to say without someone saying you can't say it, then there's always space for that in the world. I've always wanted to entertain, inform, you know, and just give someone something sensible to read. You know, I'm fed up with reading the bullshit in the programmes week in, week out. And the adverts, you know, every programme was full of the same old tosh. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to entertain people. I want to give someone that can sit there and actually read it, you know, enjoy it.
You were that big when you first come over, yeah?
That's what the idea of fanzines really were. To have a voice, take the piss, you know, and if you can inform as well at the same time, then you weren't doing a bad job. You've got the whole package, you know? But you had to inform as well as take the piss and have a laugh. It was a conglomeration of all them things that the fanzine was all about. And we were telling them if they could go and get a good pie at Liverpool or a really shit pie at Wigan or something, you know? Something as basic as that. But we were telling them something. You know, we were telling them ticket details that the club wouldn't tell you about, telling them about stewarding, you know, the inside information about stewarding and what they look out for and all that, like, you know. Anything that we could learn, anything that we could glean that they weren't telling you, we would tell them. You know, that's what we were about.
Overland at sea, get your fanzine. Today's issue.
It's like I'm a priest up there, standing on top of a pulpit, preaching to people, like, you know, cracking the same old gag. Every week it's the same old gag, but they still fucking laugh. It's what I do. It's you know, I'm a showman. It is putting on a show. I put a show on out here. I don't just sell the fanzine. You know, I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm someone's solicitor. I'm their father, their mother, their brother. You know, I know everyone's stories. Everything. I've been told. You name it, I've been told it. You know, someone's caught their wife having a knock-off with a fucking milkman or something. They tell me first thing in the morning, like, you know. I'd seen the West Ham fanzines knocking around for like, you know, a year or whatever like that. I thought, I'll have a go myself. I only had printed about 50 or 100 or something, the first one. I took it in the boat in, I sold them out within 10 minutes. And it just snowballed on from there. The thing about a West Ham one is it had to be funny. Because all the shit was going on around us all the time. The shit owners that terrorised us and tried to bring bond schemes in and all that kind of thing, like, you know. So we had to have a good portion of humour. The only things I wouldn't tolerate any racism or racist articles. Wouldn't tolerate that. And I wouldn't tolerate any homophobia. I've always been a very, very happy geezer. And I like to be around happy people and I like the rest of the world to be happy. And you know, that's gone in the fanzine as well as in my life. That's how my life is and all that. Simple as that. I didn't come over here from a little boy like everyone else and get pushed through the crowd and that wasn't part of my life. I didn't do that. And it weren't until I was about 15 and I met a little bit of skirt. A nice young lady, I should say, who come from East Ham, just up the road. One day, it was West Ham were playing Man United, I think. And one of the family weren't going. And the old man said, well, why don't you come over here? I went, go see West Ham, having a laugh, ain't you? I'm going to see that, you know? That's the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to lay in bed and play with his daughter all night. But she was going as well, so I thought, well, I'll play with her on the ground. And he gave me his ticket and I went over there. And I had such a good day out. It was magical. You know, the atmosphere was electric. Everything about the day. Everything about the day. The people walking around, you know, the colours, the sounds, the smells. You know, coming in here. I remember coming in here. Or we queued up for about an hour to get in here. And just, you know, the atmosphere in here, people buzzing and that, you know, everyone's got their heads stuck in programmes or chatting about the game or last week's game and that. It was all new environment to me, you know? And I really buzzed off of that. It's like I found myself on that day, you know? It was bizarre, but a long time ago, mate. Still remember that day, though, as fresh as anything.
Everybody wants to belong to something. And I think if you understand what you can get out of being part of the crowd at a football team and following a team over a period of months and years and enduring its failures and enjoying its successes, you can't really beat that from my point of view. Following Charlton has been a massively rewarding part of my life just to be there when the team has been successful on the field, and to be around and with other people and make friends with people who've shared that experience. So that goes beyond being the fanzine editor, but if being the fanzine editor adds to that, and I know it does, then why would I not want to do that? Charlton were founded in 1905. They joined the league in 1921. As recently as 1956, there was a crowd of 75,000 at the Valley. 71,000. There was a crowd of 71,767 for Charlton versus Arsenal in the FA Cup at the Valley. My parents actually went to a match at the Valley on their first date in 1950. So that's how deep my roots to Charlton go, and I was lucky enough to be taken by my father then in 1969, and the family has continued to go. Typically, the generations will like different types of music. I don't like the music my daughter likes, and she doesn't like what I like, and neither of us would listen to what my dad listens to. But we can all follow the same football team because that's a shared experience, and we're all excited by the same things, which is basically the team scoring goals and winning matches. So it's a really important way, I think, of keeping families together and building friendships. I've got huge numbers of friends who I've made at Charlton and got to know, not just through going to the football, but all through the campaigning activity. So basically, we're just putting together the last issue of the season, which is coming out for the Brighton game. And there's going to be a few big protests planned around that. We've already had some big protests, and we've got a special one coming up for that match. Fans have become convinced that the present owner needs to be removed. Groups have come together to form the coalition against Roland Duchâtelet. Voice of the Valley is involved in that. It's not leading it, it's not all of it, but it's certainly a fundamental part of it. And it enables us to get the message across to people on match days and between matches, and to give them perhaps a broader understanding of what the issues are which concern us.
(1985–1986) is kind of high Thatcherism. The miners' strike has been concluded with comprehensive defeat for both the miners, the wider trade union movement, and the Labour Party. So, the most significant oppositional force, to the Thatcher programme is broken. The industrial zones of the north, of the Midlands, of Scotland, of Wales, have absolutely had the heart torn out of them. So it's a country that's about to become incredibly unequal.
There was a stratification of society in Britain in the 80s that hadn't happened even under previous Conservative governments, a sense of a them and us attitude. There was a tendency to see any kind of youth culture or sort of alternative culture as being a threat because they presented themselves as a party of order. They sensed it was a vote winner for them to depict football fans as the enemy within, as Thatcher said about the miners.
So the state of football in 1985 is kind of captured by the Sunday Times, which summarised what had been a kind of awful year. You'd had the Heysel tragedy, you'd had live fighting at Luton, you've had the Bradford fire, and it was described as a slum game played in slum stadiums, watched by slum people.
Football fans were seen as to people who weren't football fans, there was a perception that they were all kind of crazy hooligans, because that was the kind of stuff you saw in the newspapers and saw on television.
Football fans were like public enemy number one. If you admitted to being a football fan in the music industry, you were almost a leper.
The only individuals we saw were sort of, Nottingham Forest fans. He got it tattooed on his lip, being dragged backwards by two burly policemen.
The media image, the portrayal of football fans was as shaven-headed knuckle-draggers.
Football fans were seen as a problem. There's no doubt about that. Thatcher saw them as a problem. And obviously hooliganism was a problem.
Violence, stroke disorder, stroke kind of threatening atmospheres are widespread and pervasive, and that is matched by a really unpleasant form of policing, which treats football as a kind of massive, sort of criminalised activity.
As far as the authorities were concerned, it wasn't a safety issue, It was a crowd control issue.
You were marshalled, maybe from a train station. As soon as you got there, you wouldn't be allowed to go to a pub. You'd be funneled straight to the ground. You'd be locked in afterwards.
The football fans had put up for it for years. When you go into away matches, you were herded around.
You feel like an animal. You go away, you get on the train, you go out for a drink, you come out of the station, all I want to do is just put you in the ground.
I work in the city, I'm one of Thatcher's, supposedly youth, I love it, But on a Saturday, I'll go to football, I love my football, but I'm treated like a criminal, and, just like, you just got to do it.
Trying to suppress everybody and herd everybody along, and things aren't going to change really until they start to talk to people that they're affecting.
It was really extraordinary the way fans were treated.
They thought they should electrocute the fences at Stamford Bridge so that the fans couldn't get onto the pitch. So they were going to send 500 volts through them.
Some of the grounds you used to go to, they were absolutely appalling, There was no investment, there was a casual attitude, I think, from the authorities to safety.
The state of the nation's infrastructure, footballing infrastructure, is Edwardian, Victorian, patched up at best.
Why should you go and watch a spectator sport in facilities that were designed for the 1920s and 30s? It was an absolute scandal, really.
It was a distraction, a useful distraction for football administrators who'd let various parts of the ground fall into neglect, that fans could be depicted as a social order problem that needed containment. So I think fans unfairly took the blame for a lot of things that are really beyond their control.
I mean, it was a time of, complete nutters talking utter nonsense about how to solve the problem. And of course, the people who knew how the problem might be solved weren't engaged in the conversation at all, because they're only the football fans after all. What do they know?
Off the ball came about at a time when football fans were fighting each other and when they were often pitted against each other in media terms as well. Our argument was that the issues that united football fans, and this even bigger issue of who runs football and how football is run, these were bigger issues than which particular team you supported. So we had the idea that what you've got to do is come together, unite as football fans, of course, share your rivalry in terms of what goes on the field, but off the pitch, we've got much more that unites us than divides us.
The idea for When Saturday Comes came in 1985. Mike Tischer and myself used to work in a record shop, and Mike had done a music zine, and we used to talk about football quite a lot, and he thought maybe there's a way of doing a football spin-off from this music zine. When we started, football magazines were either magazines for young people like Shoot, which were fine, but for sort of 14-year-olds. Or there were one or two very bland magazines that were around that were more like a football programme in style. There was nothing that was really talking to people like ourselves. We felt that football fans had an unfairly negative image for a long period of time, that the typical football fan was just an ordinary person. They were a cross-section of society. They weren't the hooligans they were often depicted as in the press.
As well as being a backlash against the way football was being run, it was also a backlash against the boneheads who, to our view, had taken too much control of the terraces or had helped to define our image as football fans.
There were plenty of things that needed to be said that weren't being said in existing media.
We were working class kids. Nobody we knew was a journalist. It just seemed a very distant world.
The football zine was really a byproduct, I think, of the kind of music zine and kind of subculture that was already around.
If you went to gigs in the late 70s, you'd always be handed a very rough magazine, might have been photocopied, and as football fans just a few years later who'd grown up around that atmosphere, we thought, well, hold on a minute, if it worked for music, why can't it work for football?
Now you think about people express themselves on football forums, they express themselves on Facebook and Twitter. This was before that, this was self-publishing, you see. So people didn't put their thoughts down. Now it's every minute of the day, people are putting their thoughts down. This was a revolution, really, because people were starting to write about things that meant something to them. I'd say it was a watershed moment for a lot of people. You know, we were getting poems given to us at the matches going, I wrote this poem, don't put my name on it though. You know, and that's what was happening. People were just approaching it in pubs and giving you documents, but saying, don't tell anyone it was me. It's a catalyst for a lot of people's expression, really.
People were saying things in print that they perhaps thought or talked about with their friends.
So many people getting their hands on a fanzine and saying, we're going to do this ourselves, we're going to make one.
There was a cheap and easy way of doing that on a monthly basis, so a lot of people just grabbed the opportunity.
The fanzines were selling tens of thousands of copies every weekend. All of a sudden, the idea that you could write about football in an interesting, in a diverse and in a varied way, that gained currency.
People are reading not just their own fanzine, people are getting into everybody else's fanzine, and this becomes a point of connection between people and provides a kind of common way of thinking, and I think above all, a recognition that one is not alone. This is clearly a bigger subculture emerging in football, once atomised and individualised. Fanzines allowed them to find each other and have a kind of collective voice, and one of the consequences is the emergence of the Football Supporters Association, the FSA, in the mid-1980s.
I couldn't understand how those who gave everything that made the game what it was could be so ignored.
You couldn't just sit on the side sort of saying, oh, it'd be a good idea if you did this. That actually, why don't you bloody do it if it's such a good idea? Why don't the fans attempt to organise themselves in some way?
Trying to get hold of rooms above pubs, the amount of places that turned us down, they said you can't have those football fans together because there will be a riot. That was their genuine fear.
We were football fans trying to get transport, trying to get ticket, trying to deal with police, trying to get on with the life of being a football fan and dealing with all the problems that presented.
All fans will have to carry an identity card with their number and photograph. Clubs will have to install computerised turnstiles with cards being checked against a national register to ensure no known troublemakers slip through.
6,000 arrests in and around the ground last year, and the problems associated with hooligans to and from games, this can't be allowed to continue, and the government are determined to take tough action.
So you're going to have an ID card to be able to buy a ticket, to get it into a stadium, massive forms of regulation, impossible just to show up on the day.
That's it. Every football fan who's going to a football game is going to have football fan tattooed on his forehead.
At the time, it seemed, frankly, Orwellian.
Large numbers of people were being punished for the sins of a few.
And so you had a really interesting coalition come together, led by the Football Supporters Association, which linked together for the first time informal fan support groups. And then they sit within a wider and emerging network of conversations and contacts and culture that is produced by the fanzine movement.
I've got this great idea for football. And it with an ID card game. Please, can we have our game back? No ID! We don't want your ID card. We say, no ID! We don't want your ID card.
great idea for football. That'll get me a senior cabinet post.
Please, sir, can we have our game back? No ID! We don't want your ID cards. We say, no ID! We don't want your ID cards.
And as we all set out for that semi-final against Nottingham Forest on the 15th of April 1989, it was just a matter of weeks, and by summertime we'd be queuing up at the post office to buy our ID cards because we were naughty, naughty football fans.
Hillsborough became a way for the government to say, in effect, we told you so, to people who weren't football fans, that here was the ultimate product they would think of the way that fans had behaved over a period of time.
We knew the truth, we were at the ground, we knew what had happened. The day after I knew what had happened, I thought Liverpool fans are going to be portrayed as heroes because they initiated and conducted the rescue operation. That's what Justice Taylor said in the Taylor report, which was published in August '89, a few months after the disaster, but Thatcher didn't like the conclusions of that report. So it was buried under, smears and lies and falsehoods. It was an easy narrative to believe,
If you dehumanise somebody or something, a group first, it makes it easy to take punitive measures against them because you've presented them in a negative way first and then you act against them. Ahead of the Hillsborough disaster, there had been, for quite a long time, comments made in the zines of the late 80s about the decaying state of stadium and also the potential danger of fences at grounds.
It was tangible, the state of football stadiums of the era. You really could see they were not in a good way. It was obvious.
You just look at the Bradford fire and then you look at Hillsborough and, they were both avoidable tragedies. If there'd been a bit of investment, if the complacency of the authorities hadn't been there,
What happened that afternoon, in its myriad different effects that it had, but one of them, of course, was to lead Lord Justice Taylor to an inquiry into the causes of the disaster and also a larger inquiry into the way football is organised and run. And of course he threw out Mrs. Thatcher's idea about ID card schemes and stuff because he saw what nonsense it was.
Taylor's about infrastructure and policing. He doesn't really say anything about economics. He doesn't say about how the game should be run or should be staged beyond the recommendation that everything should go all-seater. The decisive moment, of course, that really then shapes it in its particular form is the launch of the Premier League and the triumph of Sky.
The FA Premier League, live, only on Sky. It's a whole new ballgame.
There is a real danger that the very best things about being at a football match are less intense, less joyful, perhaps even less sorrowful than they were before. There has been a process of gentrification, an inevitable process of pacification of the crowd, the difference between seating and standing. I mean, even in church you stand up when you sing, don't you?
The average age of the Premier League audience is now 48. In 1989, at least a quarter of the crowd were under 24. A quarter of the crowd, basically 18-year-olds. This changes everything. This is not what creates collective ecstasy, and that's what we're going for.
People who used to go to watch the football team and who had a sense that their team represented themselves, represented their area, can no longer go.
Working class men utterly unable to keep up with the pace of 100% increases in ticket prices, and the children of those kinds of families as well.
Liverpool put up a season ticket in the COP 1,000% over 20 years, right, after inflation. That is not down to Sky.
Now the clubs are principally concerned with developing their markets in other places around the world and much less bothered by the fact that fans in their home city can no longer afford to go.
It just shows you their attitude towards football fans still. You know, the owners, they see it as a cash cow.
Clubs are corporate brands owned by billionaires or owned by multinational companies. They're interested in merchandising and marketing.
These seem to me institutions that are obviously collective. I mean, Arsenal, what does it mean? Arsenal only means something because all of these people who either go there or watch it or follow it have invested their personal and historical narratives in the fortunes of the club. And that is a collective phenomenon. How can anybody own that?
You didn't create what these brands represent. Ordinary working people created the brands that your clubs represent over many years of paying their few shillings at the gate and going in and supporting the club.
We love this game, and people are like doing their utmost to spoil it. You know, because you've got to keep that community spirit, you've got to keep that sense of belonging, you know.
Football is a communal experience. Bristol Rovers, I've got to tell you guys, no one is going for art, and no one is really going for winning either. Because if winning was what it's about, I mean, I've got to tell you, one person wins the league, one person wins. Football's about losing most of the time, and about ugly football most of the time. And yet 10,000 people are going to see Bristol Rovers and paying for the privilege. And people are going to experience themselves and Bristolness. That's what I'm going for. Of course, the football's part of the ritual, it's an integral, but that experience, to me, is the most important and precious thing, and that's what we're in danger of losing.
Our soul. The soul of West Ham United. It's been lost. It's been lost for a couple of years. That's what's lost. Yeah, the real West Ham fans, the ones that I used to go with, they've been priced out of the game a long time ago. Priced out of the game a long time. You look at £200 for a family of four to go to a fucking football match. £200, you know? How many families can afford that in this day and age? Ain't that many. I know people that won't put food on their tables because they want to go fucking football. You know, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong.
What you just said there, right? I'm an Arsenal supporter. I don't go that new ground. Forget it. No one does. Just wanted to say that it will be hard for you lot to find that.
Won't be hard for me, mate. I ain't
It
going.
won't be hard for you. You're not going, no? You're like me. Like all of us. We'll go in the pub and watch it, mate.
I'm on top of the fans.
No.
Fuck me, what are you letting this place become? What are you letting this place become? Fucking hell.
Good luck, mate.
Cheers, brother.
Yeah, you lost it.
Cheers, mate.
No, all the best. Seriously,
Good.
I heard what you said about your fanzine as well. It's proper, mate. Proper.
Bless you. The people that control the game are so rich now. All of the chairmans and all that. No matter what you write and all that sort of thing, it's their toilet paper. They don't give a fuck, mate. We're tiny little people in their game. And it is only a game for them. It's like playing Monopoly for them. West Ham fans needed a voice. They've always needed a voice, and I've given them that voice. That's why I kept going for so long. But it's only when West Ham got the Olympic Stadium that I could see there was no fight from anybody. No one was antagonistic about it, hardly. You know? It was no good people saying to me, why aren't you fighting it? And what's the point of fighting something? You're fighting two multi-millionaires. "27 years non-stop, every single home game, a new issue. 629, I think it is today, something like that. And it's the last one. And people all over it still. How you doing, mate? Good. There you go, mate. Bless you. Thank you very much indeed. It's a funny day today here, because people are buying it. People who never bought it before ever, which I think, oh, that's great, but I think, why haven't you bought it for years? I've been doing it 27, you know what I mean? We're leaving Upton Park today. It's the last game ever. After 100 and something years, I don't know, I'm not a statistician or whatever they are, I don't do the stats, but they're leaving today after all them amount of years. They're moving to Olympic Stadium. This should have been a massive uprising and we shouldn't have done it, but there's loads of fans who want to go over there, like, you know. I don't particularly want to go over there, and that's a bigger day for me because I'm packing up doing the fanzine. All my kids, you know, my 3 boys have grown up, all they've ever known is me doing Overland and Sea. Now it's finished. Well, it ain't finished yet, but it will be by 11 o'clock at night.
That man is something special. He's just a legend. He's been here forever and a day. And he's a gentleman. And he's a proper hammer through and through. It's not worth his bother doing it no more. By the time he's printed it, written it, sold it, and then he's paid Newham Council, because everything's got to be sold within the stadium. And that's how it's going to work from now on. So a lot of these people, all up and down, Nathan's round the corner, you want to go round Nathan's round the corner, the pie and mash shop. We're not going to have that over there no more. We should be making more of an effort for these people that have been here for donkey's years, like the sellers. This is how they make their money. One day every 2 weeks, like that guy over there, where's he going to go? Have you talked to him over the road there? People like that, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Newham Council are going to slaughter them up in Stratford. It's disgusting. We're going to miss this place. This is our home. This is where we breathe. Do you know what I mean?
Over land and sea, the very final issue. 27 years all out. Over land and sea, the very final issue.
You know, I've been here a long time. I don't want to see change. I'm a dinosaur. I don't want to see change. I just want to, you know, the old proper West Ham. And I don't think I could sell over the Olympic Stadium. It's private land for a quarter of a mile around the ground and all that. You know, I'm not going to be able to tuck up in some little corner somewhere. It's tough, mate. It's tough. It's a tough day for me today. Tough day. I've been waiting for it to happen, and now it's happening. It's here. Standing on my pulpit. That's what I'm going to miss more than anything. Having a giggle with the crowd as they come past. High-fiving people as they come by and things like that, you know? Things I do every week. They're just magic moments. I love it. And that's what I'm going to miss, the people. I'm going to miss the people. Upton Park has been my life for as long as I've known it. And today sees a large part of my life slip away. I'm probably in a minority, but I don't want West Ham to become a big club. I'm happy for West Ham to do what we do now. I'm happy to go to Man United and win a cup game and then lose to AFC Wimbledon 5-0 at home in the next game. That's West Ham, that's the real West Ham. I want to be that West Ham all the time. I don't want to go in the Champions League and win every game and all that. Because with the big club, you lose all the real fans. You get a load of fluffy people come along. And I don't want to sit around fluffy people. I want to sit around real fans, proper fans, that have been coming here for years, you know? And if we become this fucking great team that's winning everything and that, and it's full of, you know, you've got all these fluffy people around you that don't know who Billy Bonds was, I don't want to be a part of that.
Fans are the guardians of the club's heritage. You can never rely on clubs because ultimately they're businesses. They're not that interested in the history, they're interested in where the next pound coin's coming from. Fans see clubs differently. They see them as continuing parts of their life. They understand the identity and they cherish that and they want to protect it and preserve it. I mean, I'm very proud that my daughter now goes to watch Charlton and you know, I hope that in time she'll be able to take her children down to watch Charlton and it will be part of her life as it's been part of mine. One of the things that Fanzines did was to give supporters a sense of their own power. And the reality is that, you know, unless they're going to patrol football grounds with guns, the sheer number of people involved who can form a protest and make life difficult for the people running the club does give you power. And of course, in the real world, we understand that somebody owns the assets and somebody owns the shares, but the club is bigger than that, and actually there's room for both parties to work together. And that's really what the fanzine movement was all about. It wasn't about fans taking control of clubs, it was about them having a say and helping to shape clubs' destinies. I think that the club is more than the property of a Belgian millionaire. It's something which the community has owned and shaped and values over many decades, and it's quite wrong that one man can just treat it as his plaything and, in my view, destroy it.
Price of the Valley, £2 only. New edition out today. Issue number 127, £2 today, £200 on Antiques Roadshow in a year's time. Part of the literary culture of football, part of the literary culture of Charlton. It's a bargain, no adverts, no propaganda. Brand new, Voice of the Valley, out today.
Obviously the team's gone down on Tuesday night, and that sparked a particularly angry reaction from the fans, even though we knew it was going to be inevitable. So today we're saying we're going to chuck the kitchen sink at them, and the idea is to show this bloke he's got to go, he's got to leave.
We're dressed like a donkey because we believe the owners are donkeys.
We were a thriving club with a good fan base and a good relationship between the owners and the fans 2 years ago. Du Châtelet came in and he's just wrecked all that. He's made stupid management decisions, he's arrogant, he's vain, he thinks he knows everything, and the league does not lie.
This is just one example of what's happening in English football, and I think, if we don't make a stand here, where's it going to stop? And I hope other people around the country will take our example. What we're trying to do here is not just get Roland du Châtelet out, but hopefully show people that football supporters matter, that their views count, and if you don't have the supporters on side, you can't run a successful football club.
Well, taller than I thought, life's too short and we really should go for a ride. Halls just formed, the walls postponed, so come on, I've got the Plymouth outside. The sky's a bit dull but the fridge is full, things could be a lot worse. It's not like you've been captured by Barbary corsairs. I said let's head Winchester way, she said been yesterday. 27 yards of dental floss and she still won't give me a smile.
They say that the pen is mightier than the sword, and at the moment in football, money is the sword, and all we've got, all of us like dispossessed, ordinary poor people who are loyal beyond belief to our football clubs, whether they're Mansfield Town or Plymouth or Dial. We love our clubs, and the devil is money, and the sword that's going to fight it is the word.
Our programmes speak nothing about it. They just go like everything's fine, where it ain't. We need to get Roland out, and protesting is the best way to do it.
I think it's important, because the fans make it not just a club, because if the club make it, it's going to be like, oh look at this, look, Roland's the best owner ever and all this shit. Because the fans make it, it's absolutely crazy and that, you know what I mean?
I said, would you like to go to sushi? Said, yeah, but not with you. 27 yards of dental floss, but she still won't give me a smile. I'm king euphoria, she's...
This fanzine has been going for over 20 years. It's been part of our fight. Fanzines around the country have been part of their fights. We want a literary culture and we want the word to be spread. And fanzine is one way of doing it.
You have to make decisions in your life about what your objectives are, and some people are career focused and some people want a particular kind of lifestyle. If you're a football fan, to have the opportunity to immerse yourself in the football club and its workings over a period of 3 decades is a fantastic opportunity, isn't it? It's hugely rewarding in its own right. It wouldn't satisfy people who are not interested in football, but really that's neither here nor there. And it's been a fascinating thing to have done, and I think also what is particularly important about print is that there's a legacy. People collect fanzines in the way that they collect match day programmes. You leave something behind you, you leave your mark. Whatever changes you're able to effect at the time, recording the history of what was important to people, so many people over so many years, that's not a bad thing to have done with your life.